The storm poured down on the realm like an army of falling needles, relentless and cold. Ashen Vale barely registered it. His boots dragged through the sodden earth as his gaze locked onto a modest hut sitting alone at the tree line. It was only a servant's dwelling. Nothing about it should have drawn the attention of an alpha king. And yet his inner wolf had been on edge the entire day, snarling beneath his skin, unwilling to be calmed. It began that morning, when Ren failed to appear for her duties yet again. Cassia, his intended, had jumped at the chance to criticize her. "She's probably off hiding somewhere," she'd sneered. "That girl has always been idle." Idle? Ashen's jaw clenched at the thought. No one on the estate labored harder than Ren. Season after season she had served the royal house without a single complaint, always punctual, always respectful, never once asking for favor. Still, Cassia despised her with an intensity that made no sense. And Ren herself made no sense either. Whenever his eyes fell on her, something inside him stirred. Not attraction, not even simple curiosity, but recognition. As if his beast understood something his mind had long buried, a violent gust tore past him. His wolf let out a low growl. Ashen glanced up. The cottage door hung ajar. Unease crept up his spine. Something was deeply wrong. He climbed the worn steps. Ren? No answer. Only rain. His wolf snarled harder. He shoved the door open wide. The smell hit him first. Blood, fresh and thick. His whole frame locked rigid. The room was devastation. A chair splintered against the wall. The table flipped on its side. Shattered crockery scattered the floorboards. And blood, so much blood soaked into the wood. His wolf erupted inside him. Danger, danger, danger. His heart slammed against his ribs. Ren. He tore deeper into the small house. Then he saw her, a crumpled shape near the hearth. For one suspended second, everything in the world stood still. Ren, her dark hair matted with blood. Bruises bloomed across her face. Her dress hung in tatters. One arm twisted at a sickening angle. She looked as though someone had beaten her within an inch of her life and left her there to die. A sound tore out of Ashen's throat, neither man nor beast. Fury flooded through his veins. His irises flared emerald. Alpha power crashed through the room, rattling the windows and shaking the very walls. Who had done this? Who would dare? He dropped to his knees beside her, hands trembling as he searched for a pulse. They're faint, terrifyingly faint. Relief slammed into him so hard he nearly cried out. She was alive. Barely, but alive. Ren. His voice came out ragged. Her eyelids twitched, but nothing more. Carefully, he gathered her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Then a sound. Soft, tiny, a sniffle. Ashen went still. Even his wolf froze. The sound came again. A child. Somewhere within the walls of this ruined home. He turned slowly. Another whimper, frightened and small. His eyes landed on an old storage chest shoved against the far wall, its door shut and bolted. Fear poured off it in waves he could practically taste. He crossed to it, heart pounding faster with every step. Something about this felt impossible. The lock gave way instantly beneath his strength. The door swung open. Silence. Then two wide, brilliant green eyes stared back at him. Ashen forgot how to breathe. A small boy sat curled inside, no more than 5 or 6 years old, tears streaking down his cheeks, his tiny body shaking. But Ashen barely registered any of that because he was staring at a face that mirrored his own. The same black hair, the same green eyes, the same dimples, the same set of the jaw. Impossible. The child looked exactly like him. The ground seemed to tilt beneath Ashen's feet. The boy's lip quivered. His frightened gaze darted to Ren's motionless form, then back to Ashen. In a small, broken voice, he whispered, "Where's Mommy?" The ride to the castle blurred into a haze of rain and thunder. Ashen pushed his horse to its limit, Ren unconscious in his arms. The boy clinging to her torn sleeve with both small hands the entire way, never once letting go, never once taking his eyes off Ashen, and every time their gazes met, the child looked away. Fear, suspicion, distrust. It twisted something painful in Ashen's chest. His wolf despised that look. The castle gates burst open the second they arrived. Guards rushed forward. Servants froze mid-step. Gasps rippled through the courtyard. Everyone knew Ren, the quiet maid who kept her head low and never caused trouble. No one had ever seen her like this. Broken, bleeding, barely clinging to life, Ashen carried her straight to the royal infirmary. "Move," he barked, and the healers scattered into motion. Within moments, she lay on a bed, surrounded by hands trying to save her. The boy tried to scramble after her immediately. A healer gently held him back. He panicked. "No, Mommy?" His small voice cracked as he kicked and struggled. Ashen watched in silence. This wasn't a tantrum. The child was terrified, as if letting go of her for even a heartbeat might mean losing her forever. The thought sent Ashen's wolf pacing violently. The boy finally broke free and ran to the bedside, gripping Ren's hand with both of his own. Only then did his panic settle. Only then did his fear begin to fade. Ashen stood several paces back, watching, studying, trying to make sense of what his eyes told him. The resemblance was impossible. Every tilt of the boy's head showed Ashen his own reflection. Same eyes, same dark hair, same stubborn jaw, even the same dimples. Goddess above, even the dimples. A healer approached carefully. "Your Majesty." Ashen barely heard him, his focus locked on the child. "Your Majesty?" He blinked. "What?" The old healer hesitated, glancing between the boy and Ashen, back and forth, before finally clearing his throat. "Forgive my asking. Whose child is this?" The room fell utterly silent. Even the healers stopped moving. Everyone waited. Ashen looked at the boy. The boy looked at Ren. Neither spoke. A strange pressure built in Ashen's chest, because for the first time in years he desperately wanted an answer, and had none. "I don't know," he finally said. The words sounded hollow even to him. The healer didn't look convinced. Ashen wasn't convinced either. A soft whimper drew his attention back. The boy had curled himself against Ren's side, fingers locked around hers as though she might vanish. Ashen took a step closer. The child stiffened instantly. A tiny growl escaped him. Weak, small, but unmistakably wolf. Silence again. Ashen stared. The boy stared back. Green eyes meeting green eyes. For one flickering instant, something passed between them. A sudden, sharp spike of fear. Not his own. The boy's. It vanished as quickly as it came, but his wolf surged forward, alert and fixated. Only blood could forge that kind of unintended bond. His heartbeat thundered. Impossible. He looked back at the child, who had gone pale, small body trembling as though he too had felt it. Before Ashen could speak, the doors slammed open. A familiar voice rang through the infirmary. Ashen. His intended Cassia, future ruler at his side, strode in. The room went quiet in a way Ashen couldn't quite explain. She looked as flawless as always, elegant, composed, radiant. Yet something felt wrong. His wolf sensed it too. Danger. The warning pulsed through his mind. Strange, his wolf had never reacted to her this way. Not once, until now, and now it refused to stop growling. Cassia seemed to ignore it, or tried hard to. Her focus locked onto the boy. The child instantly buried himself against Ren, small fists clutching the blanket, eyes wide with fear. Ashen noticed the boy hadn't reacted this way to healers, to guards, or even to him. Only to Cassia. A flicker crossed her face, gone almost instantly, too fast for anyone but Ashen and his wolf to catch. Not irritation, not jealousy, fear. "What happened?" she asked softly. Ashen crossed his arms. "I found Ren in her cottage." Cassia's throat bobbed. Beaten nearly to death, for a heartbeat, the color drained from her face. Why would that unsettle her so deeply? Surely she hadn't expected to find the servant in such a state. Something about her reaction felt very wrong. Her gaze drifted toward the child again. He looked away instantly. Another low growl rumbled in Ashen's chest. Cassia stepped closer. Too close. The boy pressed tighter against Ren, fear rolling off him like a scent. Ashen felt it wash over the room, and then, for a split second, he felt it inside his own chest too. The same panic, the same instinct to flee. It vanished just as fast. Ashen went rigid. Bloodline. The thought slammed into his mind before he could stop. Impossible. Ashen? Cassia's voice pulled him back. "What?" She smiled quickly, too bright, as though papering over something beneath it. Then lower. "Did the boy say anything?" Ashen stared at her. Not is he alright. Not who is he. Not will she survive. Her first concern was whether the child had spoken. A cold weight settled in his gut. No, Cassia visibly relaxed. It lasted less than a second, but he caught every bit of it, and now he couldn't stop wondering why. Before he could press her, another voice echoed through the wing. "Ashen." The room straightened at once. Servants bowed. Guards parted. The Queen Mother had arrived, Evelyn Vale, the most respected woman in the kingdom, entering with her usual grace, silver-haired, regal, sharp-eyed. Yet the moment she saw the boy, she stopped mid-stride. Only a heartbeat, but she stopped. Dean shrugged again, then lifted his gaze. Green meeting green. I think she was waiting for somebody who forgot her. The word struck like a fist. Ashen went rigid. Forgot her. Something about that sentence mattered painfully. A headache flared behind his eyes. Rain, a forest, a woman's laughter. Images flickered and vanished before he could catch them. He pressed his fingers to his temple. The pain faded, leaving only frustration in its place. Before he could push further, the door swung open without a knock. Cassia entered, and Ashen immediately read her expression fury, carefully concealed. Not obvious enough for most to notice, but he knew her too well. The tight smile, the rigid shoulders, eyes locked on Dean. She hated this room, hated the attention Ashen kept giving its occupants. My love. She crossed the room with practiced grace. Ashen rose automatically, though something about it felt forced today. Cassia. Her eyes flicked to Dean. The boy scooted closer to the fireplace, putting distance between them. Ashen noticed. Cassia noticed him, noticing, which tightened her smile further. We need to discuss the bonding ceremony, Ashen sighed. We can discuss it later. No, the word came too fast, too sharp. Even she seemed surprised by her own tone. An awkward beat passed. She lowered her voice. You've spent nearly every day in this wing. He crossed his arms. So? She laughed cold. So? Her gaze slid to Dean, then to Ren's closed door. You have an entire kingdom to run. He said nothing. You have a bonding ceremony in a month. Still nothing. And yet you've become completely distracted by a filthy servant and her child. The words hung in the air. Ashen's face hardened instantly. Even Dean looked up, eyes wide. Cassia realized her mistake, but too late. His wolf growled loud, dangerous, directed at her for the second time in days. The sound startled even Ashen. Cassia stepped back, fear flashing across her face before vanishing almost instantly. But he saw it. Always fear. Never jealousy. Never. Simple annoyance. Fear. Why the word left him before he could stop it. She's not filthy. Silence followed. Cassia stared. He stared back. Neither moved. Then she asked the question she'd clearly been holding back for days. Why do you care so much? The room stilled. Ashen opened his mouth. No answer came, because the truth was he didn't know. Didn't know why he couldn't stop thinking about Ren. Why her tears bothered him. Why her hatred hurt him. Why? Dean felt strangely familiar. Why? Every instinct in him screamed that something precious had been stolen from him, and for the first time since finding that ruined cottage. Ashen decided he intended to find out. Sleep abandoned Ashen entirely. Every time his eyes closed, the dreams returned. Fragments, splinters of memory refusing to fit together. A woman's laughter, soft and achingly familiar. Rain drumming on a cottage roof. A pair of hands resting in his. A moonlit forest glowing silver under a full moon. Then darkness. Always darkness. He jolted upright in bed, breath ragged. The dream dissolved instantly, leaving frustration in its wake. The same dream again. The same fragments. The same feeling that something vital sat just beyond his grasp. His wolf paced restlessly inside him, unhappy, agitated, missing someone. He dragged a hand down his face. Dawn was breaking outside his window. The castle stirred to life, but his thoughts had already drifted elsewhere. Ren, always Ren. That afternoon he found himself outside her wing again. He hadn't planned to come, or so he told himself, yet his feet kept carrying him there anyway. The guards bowed. He entered. The sitting room stood empty. He assumed she was resting, until a soft laugh reached him. His chest tightened. The sound drifted from the balcony. Ren sat wrapped in a blanket, Dean at her feet, showing her a drawing a wolf, badly crooked. Ashen nearly smiled. Almost. Ren looked healthier than she had days before. The bruises lingered, but color had returned to her cheeks. It should have relieved him. Instead, it stirred fresh anger. Someone had done this to her, left her bleeding on the floor, and he still didn't know who. Dean noticed him first. His smile disappeared instantly. Ashen tried not to take it personally. Failed. Ren looked up, and the warmth vanished from her face too, as if someone had snuffed out a candle. He hated that, for reasons he couldn't name. How are you feeling? Wonderful. The sarcasm could have cut steel. He let it slide. You should still be resting. She looked away, toward the distant road beyond the castle walls. The same road leading out of the kingdom. He noticed, because she'd done it 3 times already. Always searching. For what? For whom? You're healing fast. No answer. His patience then, not because she was rude, but because she wouldn't speak to him at all. Every response felt guarded. Every exchange ended before it began. It felt like talking to someone who'd already decided he wasn't worth her time. The realization bothered him more than it should have. He should have been buried in council reports. The investigation was accelerating, witnesses surfacing, records unearthed, the truth drawing closer. Yet none of it held his focus. His mind kept circling back to one thing: a kiss. A confusing, infuriating kiss. He leaned back, eyes closed, still able to feel the brief press of Ren's lips against his cheek. It hadn't felt romantic. If anything, it had felt like desperation. A performance, a distraction, a warning. His wolf paced, unsatisfied. He groaned. He was losing his mind. A knock sounded. Enter. Ren and Dean stepped in. The boy's face brightened at the sight of him. Ashen hated how much that pleased him. Ren remained expressionless, distant. He found himself standing before he'd realized he moved. Is something wrong? Ren clasped her hands. We're leaving. The words hit like a blow. What? We're going home. No, the refusal came instantly, without thought. Her eyes narrowed. He pressed on. It isn't safe. It's my home. Someone tried to kill you. And he stared. Was she serious? Ren, that cottage is all I have. It's being rebuilt. He cut in, sharper than intended. He forced a breath, calmed himself. We're close. Close to what? Dean shrugged again, then lifted his gaze. Green meeting green. I think she was waiting for somebody who forgot her. The word struck like a fist. Ashen went rigid. Forgot her. Something about that sentence mattered painfully. A headache flared behind his eyes. Rain, a forest, a woman's laughter. Images flickered and vanished before he could catch them. He pressed his fingers to his temple. The pain faded, leaving only frustration in its place. Before he could push further, the door swung open without a knock. Cassia entered, and Ashen immediately read her expression: fury, carefully concealed. Not obvious enough for most to notice, but he knew her too well. The tight smile, the rigid shoulders, eyes locked on Dean. She hated this room, hated the attention Ashen kept giving its occupants. My love. She crossed the room with practiced grace. Ashen rose automatically, though something about it felt forced today. Cassia. Her eyes flicked to Dean. The boy scooted closer to the fireplace, putting distance between them. Ashen noticed. Cassia noticed him, noticing, which tightened her smile further. We need to discuss the bonding ceremony, Ashen sighed. We can discuss it later. No, the word came too fast, too sharp. Even she seemed surprised by her own tone. An awkward beat passed. She lowered her voice. You've spent nearly every day in this wing. He crossed his arms. So? She laughed cold. So? Her gaze slid to Dean, then to Ren's closed door. You have an entire kingdom to run. He said nothing. You have a bonding ceremony in a month. Still nothing. And yet you've become completely distracted by a filthy servant and her child. The words hung in the air. Ashen's face hardened instantly. Even Dean looked up, eyes wide. Cassia realized her mistake, but too late. His wolf growled loud, dangerous, directed at her for the second time in days. The sound startled even Ashen. Cassia stepped back, fear flashing across her face before vanishing almost instantly. But he saw it. Always fear. Never jealousy. Never. Simple annoyance. Fear. Why the word left him before he could stop it. She's not filthy. Silence followed. Cassia stared. He stared back. Neither moved. Then she asked the question she'd clearly been holding back for days. Why do you care so much? The room stilled. Ashen opened his mouth. No answer came, because the truth was he didn't know. Didn't know why he couldn't stop thinking about Ren. Why her tears bothered him. Why her hatred hurt him. Why? Dean felt strangely familiar. Why? Every instinct in him screamed that something precious had been stolen from him, and for the first time since finding that ruined cottage. Ashen decided he intended to find out. Sleep abandoned Ashen entirely. Every time his eyes closed, the dreams returned. Fragments, splinters of memory refusing to fit together. A woman's laughter, soft and achingly familiar. Rain drumming on a cottage roof, a pair of hands resting in his. A moonlit forest glowing silver under a full moon. Then darkness, always darkness. He jolted upright in bed, breath ragged. The dream dissolved instantly, leaving frustration in its wake. The same dream again, the same fragments, the same feeling that something vital sat just beyond his grasp. His wolf paced restlessly inside him, unhappy, agitated, missing someone. He dragged a hand down his face. Dawn was breaking outside his window. The castle stirred to life, but his thoughts had already drifted elsewhere. Ren, always Ren. That afternoon he found himself outside her wing again. He hadn't planned to come, or so he told himself, yet his feet kept carrying him there anyway. The guards bowed. He entered. The sitting room stood empty. He assumed she was resting, until a soft laugh reached him. His chest tightened. The sound drifted from the balcony. Ren sat wrapped in a blanket, Dean at her feet, showing her a drawing, a wolf, badly crooked. Ashen nearly smiled. Almost. Ren looked healthier than she had days before. The bruises lingered, but color had returned to her cheeks. It should have relieved him. Instead, it stirred fresh anger. Someone had done this to her, left her bleeding on the floor, and he still didn't know who. Dean noticed him first. His smile disappeared instantly. Ashen tried not to take it personally, failed. Ren looked up, and the warmth vanished from her face too, as if someone had snuffed out a candle. He hated that, for reasons he couldn't name. How are you feeling? Wonderful. The sarcasm could have cut steel. He let it slide. You should still be resting. She looked away, toward the distant road beyond the castle walls. The same road leading out of the kingdom. He noticed, because she'd done it 3 times already. Always searching. For what? For whom? You're healing fast. No answer. His patience then, not because she was rude, but because she wouldn't speak to him at all. Every response felt guarded. Every exchange ended before it began. It felt like talking to someone who'd already decided he wasn't worth her time. The realization bothered him more than it should have. He should have been buried in council reports. The investigation was accelerating, witnesses surfacing, records unearthed, the truth drawing closer. Yet none of it held his focus. His mind kept circling back to one thing: a kiss. A confusing, infuriating kiss. He leaned back, eyes closed, still able to feel the brief press of Ren's lips against his cheek. It hadn't felt romantic. If anything, it had felt like desperation, a performance, a distraction, a warning. His wolf paced, unsatisfied. He groaned. He was losing his mind. A knock sounded. Enter. Ren and Dean stepped in. The boy's face brightened at the sight of him. Ashen hated how much that pleased him. Ren remained expressionless, distant. He found himself standing before he'd realized he moved. Is something wrong? Ren clasped her hands. We're leaving. The words hit like a blow. What? We're going home. No, the refusal came instantly, without thought. Her eyes narrowed. He pressed on. It isn't safe. It's my home. Someone tried to kill you. And he stared. Was she serious? Ren, that cottage is all I have. It's being rebuilt. He cut in, sharper than intended. He forced a breath, calmed himself. We're close. Close to what? To finding whoever did this. The room quieted. She looked away, jaw tightening, fighting something, anger, pain, maybe both. Before he could ask, she crouched beside Dean, her voice softening instantly. Dean, sweetheart, would you go play outside for a little while? The boy glanced between them, sensing something, the way children always do. Okay, a small smile, Ashen's dimples flashing on his face before he disappeared through the door. Leaving dangerous silence behind, Ashen suddenly became very aware he was alone with Ren, and that she looked absolutely furious. He opened his mouth. Ren, I crack. The slap rang through the study. His head snapped sideways. Absolute stillness followed. Neither moved. Neither breathed. He turned back slowly. Shock spread across his face. Not because she'd struck him. No one in the kingdom would dare touch an alpha, let alone a king. The shock came from the tears standing in her eyes. Tears she refused to let fall. She stepped closer. Close enough he could see every crack in her composure, every sleepless night, every ounce of buried pain. I'm done. Her voice trembled. Not from fear, from heartbreak. He frowned. What? I'm done playing this game. The words struck like stones. Her chest heaved. You. She pointed at him. Your mother. Another step. Cassia. Ashen froze. His wolf went on alert. Danger. You all think this is amusing? What are you talking about? His confusion was genuine, which only seemed to enrage her further. I don't care what game this is, her voice cracked. I don't care how entertaining it's been for the lot of you. He stared, utterly lost. What game? The pain crossing her face nearly stopped his heart, because it wasn't anger anymore. It was devastation, raw, open, bleeding. The kind of pain born only from loving someone and losing them. Something sick twisted in his gut, because somehow he knew he was the cause, even without understanding how. I am done pretending. Her voice dropped, quiet, broken. And if you think I will ever forgive me for what? He interrupted, not out of defiance, but genuine confusion, silence. She froze. The whole room froze. The look she gave him next would haunt him the rest of his life. Pure disbelief, as if he'd just insisted the sky wasn't blue. The hatred drained away, leaving only hurt. Somehow that was worse. Far worse. Ashen. His name sounded like a wound in her mouth. Then she whispered something, one simple sentence that apparently held everything. We promised beneath the moon that no matter what happened, we would always find our way back to each other. His world shattered. Rain, a cottage, moonlight, laughter, a woman spinning beneath silver-lit trees, a promise, a kiss, a bond. Pain exploded behind his skull. He staggered backward, breath turning ragged, the room swimming. Fragments slammed into him. Hundreds, thousands, not enough to understand yet, only enough to hurt. He clutched his head, a growl tearing from his throat as more memories crashed through him. The moon, the forest, a woman's hand in his, a voice speaking his name. Then darkness. He nearly collapsed. Strong hands caught his arm. Ren, concern flashing across her face, pure instinct, pure worry, for one brief second before she remembered her anger, remembered her pain. The concern vanished as if it had never existed. He looked up, desperate, confused, hurting. Ren, she stepped back, walls rebuilding around herself. I can't do this anymore. The words came quietly. Then she turned and walked away, leaving him alone, clutching his skull. As the first shattered pieces of his forgotten past finally began breaking through the dark, Ashen barely remembered the walk back to his chambers. One moment he'd been standing before Ren, the next alone. The corridors blurred past. The bowing servants blurred past. Everything felt distant, muffled. His skull still throbbed, her words, refusing to release him. We promised beneath the moon that no matter what happened, we would always find our way back to each other. The sentence echoed endlessly, like a key straining against a rusted lock. He paced his chambers, his wolf losing all restraint, growling, pushing, demanding. Remember, it commanded through every fiber of him. Remember what? He gripped the edge of a table, breathing hard. What am I missing? The question dissolved into silence. No answer came. Then something caught his eye. A small wooden box, delivered earlier that afternoon from Ren's rebuilt cottage. He'd forgotten about it. Servants had recovered a few personal belongings from the wreckage. Most had already gone to Ren. This box remained. He frowned. Something about it felt familiar. His wolf went utterly still. He noticed. Slowly he approached the room, growing colder with every step, his heartbeat rising louder the closer he got. The box wasn't locked. He opened it. Inside sat simple things: a worn shawl, a few old sketches, a pressed moonflower. He froze, fingers stilling. The flower was dried with age, fragile, beautiful. Its scent should have faded long ago. Yet somehow, it hadn't. The moment his fingers brushed it, the world shattered. Rain, cold rain, a forest path, pain. He stumbled through darkness, weak, poisoned, bleeding, lost. Memory flooded him whole, no longer in fragments, but everything at once. He dropped to one knee in his chambers, a growl ripping from his throat as the moonflower slipped from his hand. Still, the memories kept coming. 6 years ago, the poisoning, the banquet, the drink, burning agony spreading through his veins. He remembered collapsing, remembered the panic, the shouting, then darkness. But that hadn't been the end. It had only been the beginning. He had woken in the forest, alone, disoriented, unable to place where he was. The poison had ravaged his mind, his wolf, everything. He'd wandered for hours, days, until he stumbled upon a tiny cottage at the edge of the kingdom. And a woman, Ren, His chest tightened. The memories sharpened. Ren opening her door, rain soaking her dress, concern filling her eyes. Not because she recognized him, because she didn't. He hadn't been a king to her then. He'd simply been an injured stranger. She refused to turn away. Then came more Ren tending his wounds, arguing when he refused medicine, laughing when he insisted on helping with chores. He staggered, vision blurring. He remembered her laugh. Goddess. He remembered her laugh. The very sound that had haunted his dreams for months, days passed in the memory. Shared meals in a tiny kitchen. Late night conversations. Moonlit walks through the trees. The scent of wildflowers. The warmth in her eyes whenever she looked his way. His chest actually ached because he remembered looking at her the same way, as though she was the most precious thing in existence. Because she had been, then the full moon. That memory struck hardest of all. He remembered standing beneath silver-lit trees, moonlight pooling across the forest floor, Ren before him, beautiful, nervous, smiling. His wolf had recognized her instantly. Mate. The word echoed through the memory. Not chosen. Not arranged. Not politics. Fate. Tears stung his eyes because he remembered it all. The bond, the connection, the overwhelming certainty that he'd finally found home, then the promise. The very words Ren had spoken earlier, echoing back through time. Their hands joined, moonlight bathing their skin. Her smile, his smile, and those words, no matter what happens, we will always find our way back to each other. Something inside him broke, because he remembered saying it, remembered meaning every syllable. Then the final morning, palace guards finding him, relief, confusion. He remembered promising Ren he would return just a few days, that was all, and then he'd come back for her. He remembered kissing her goodbye, remembered her standing by that road, watching him leave, trusting him completely, waiting, then darkness again. But this darkness felt different, because now he remembered what came after. His mother, Cassia, the healers, a second dose of poison, stronger this time, not enough to kill, enough to erase, enough to suppress, enough to destroy. He remembered fighting it, clinging to something, someone, a name, a face, Ren, but they kept pushing, kept insisting he was confused, delirious, hallucinating. The memories faded slowly, cruelly, until nothing remained but an ache he could never explain. Ashen sank to his knees. The truth finally standing before him in its full ugliness. He had never abandoned Ren. Never. Not once. He had tried to return. He had wanted to. He had loved her. Goddess help him. He had loved her. The realization cut deeper than any blade, because while he had forgotten, Ren never had. For 6 years she had remembered everything. Every promise. Every goodbye. Every day he never came home. Every night spent waiting by that road. Every tear. Every heartbreak, every moment she believed he had chosen Cassia over her. He bowed his head, a broken sound escaping him. For 6 years his mate had suffered, and he hadn't even known until now. Sleep never came that night. The memories wouldn't allow it, and somehow that made everything worse. The castle felt different now, colder, darker, like a gilded cage he'd only just realized he'd been trapped inside all along. The same walls that had once protected him had stolen 6 years of his life. 6 years from Ren. 6 years from his son. 6 years from his mate. He stood alone in his darkened chambers, moonlight spilling through the window, silvering his face. His wolf had gone silent. Not calm, silent, the kind of stillness that precedes a storm. He understood, because he felt exactly the same. The betrayal was too vast, too monstrous, too deep. He wasn't angry yet. He was still trying to comprehend how the people he trusted most could have done something so vile. A knock broke his thoughts. He didn't turn. Bring my mother. The queen mother arrived 20 minutes later, elegant as ever, composed as ever, confident as ever. She entered, expecting conversation. Instead, she found her son sitting in silence behind his desk, a stack of files spread before him. Evidence, proof, memory made tangible. He looked up. She smiled. It vanished the instant she saw his eyes. For the first time in years, the Alpha King wasn't looking at her as a son. He looked at her as a suspect. Ashen. Silence. Her stomach tightened. What happened? He slid a file across the desk. She glanced at it, and the color drained from her face. A transfer order, 6 years old, bearing her signature. Another file. A witness reassignment. another signature, another, and another. The silence stretched unbearably. He never raised his voice, never moved, never blinked, and somehow that made it far more terrifying. Tell me, the words came quiet, deadly quiet. She stared at him, then at the files, then back at him. Still nothing. He nodded once slowly, as if confirming something to himself. Tell me. This time his alpha aura leaked into the room. The windows rattled. The shelves trembled. The Queen Mother swallowed, and for the first time in years, fear crossed her face. The truth unraveled piece by piece, slow and agonizing, like a rotted wound forced open. First, she denied everything. Then he produced more evidence, more witnesses, more proof, until the lies simply stopped holding together. She closed her eyes. You were never meant to meet her. Something in Ashen died at that, not because of what she'd said, but because of how easily she said it, as if Ren's life meant nothing at all. Explain. His mother took a shaking breath. You needed a proper Luna. He laughed, hollow and dangerous. A proper Luna, someone noble. Her voice grew steadier, more confident, as if she truly believed she'd done something righteous. A woman capable of standing beside a king. He stared at her, unable to believe what he was hearing. And Ren wasn't? Silence? That was answer enough. Finally, she confessed everything. Cassia had always wanted Ashen, always, since childhood. She'd spent years building her position, earning favor, preparing to become queen. Then Ashen had vanished and returned, speaking of a woman, a servant, a nobody, a maid. The queen had refused to allow it, so the two of them had acted together. The poisoning, the second dose, the memory suppression, the bribed healers, the lies fed to him, the falsified records, the reassigned servants, the silenced witnesses. Every vile detail spilled into the room. Ashen sat motionless, silent, unreacting. His mother mistook his stillness for acceptance. A grave mistake. Then came the worst part, the part that made his hands shake. Years later, they'd learned Ren had given birth. A child, his child. His mother lowered her gaze, ashamed, or perhaps simply afraid. He could no longer tell. Did you leave her alone after that? Silence. She said nothing. Mother? The word felt foreign in his mouth, cold. Did you leave her alone? The alpha command exploded through the room. She flinched. Actually flinched. No, he closed his eyes. The single word hurt more than he'd expected. She finally admitted the rest. The threats, the intimidation, the attacks, the relentless pressure to make Ren simply disappear quietly. Because as long as she remained a servant, no one would believe her. No one would listen. No one would care. Ashen stared at the woman who had raised him, the woman he had trusted completely, the woman who had taught him honor. And suddenly he didn't recognize her at all. Because monsters don't always look monstrous. Sometimes they wear crowns. Sometimes they sit on thrones. Sometimes they smile and call themselves family. A second knock sounded. The doors opened. Cassia entered, clearly summoned by the queen. The moment she saw Ashen's face, she knew he remembered everything. The fear in her eyes confirmed it. He looked at her. Neither spoke. Neither moved. Then she attempted something astonishing. A desperate smile. Ashen? I can explain. No, the single word silenced her instantly. He rose from his chair, and the room seemed to darken around him as his wolf surfaced. Not physically, but in his eyes, his presence, his fury. For years Cassia had dreamed of becoming Luna. For years she had manipulated, lied, schemed, destroyed lives. And now, for the first time, real fear touched her face. Fear she might lose everything. Good. He wanted her afraid. Because fear was still kinder than what she had given Ren. Neither woman noticed his fists trembling. Neither noticed the pain buried beneath his rage. Because underneath the betrayal, underneath the fury, one thought kept looping endlessly. While Ren cried herself to sleep, he had been here. While Dean asked where his father was, he had been here. While his mate waited by that road every single night, he had been here. Living the life stolen from all of them. Ashen looked toward the moonlit window. And for the first time in 6 years, the Alpha King understood something terrible. The ones who had destroyed his family had never been rogues, never enemies, never strangers. They had been sitting at his table the entire time the kingdom celebrated. No one realized it was a funeral, not for a person, but for a lie. Golden banners draped the castle grounds. Flowers lined the ceremonial path. Thousands of wolves packed the royal courtyard. Nobles, warriors, pack elders. Every soul of consequence gathered to witness what was meant to be history. The bonding of Alpha King Ashen Vale and Lady Cassia Ashwood, the future rulers of the realm. At least, that was what everyone believed. Cassia looked radiant, a silver gown flowing around her, jewels catching the sunlight, a smile fixed firmly in place. For the first time in days, she felt at ease. Ashen had barely spoken since their confrontation, barely reacted, barely shown any feeling at all. She'd convinced herself his silence meant surrender, that he would do what he always did, choose duty, choose the crown, choose her. She was wrong. Ashen stood atop the ceremonial platform dressed in black, his expression unreadable. The crowd watched eagerly. Elders smiled. Musicians played. Everything appeared perfect except that Ashen felt absolutely nothing. No excitement, no anticipation, only disgust. The woman walking toward him had stolen 6 years of his life, 6 years from his mate, 6 years from his son, and somehow still expected to be crowned Luna. His wolf growled violently. He let it. The ceremony began. The head elder stepped forward. Today we gather beneath the blessing of the moon goddess. Stop. The single word rang across the courtyard. Complete silence followed. The elder blinked, confused. Cassia's smile faltered. Ashen stepped forward, slow and deliberate, his alpha aura spreading across the entire courtyard. Power rolled through the crowd, and thousands of wolves fell utterly silent, every eye fixed on him, waiting. He looked at Cassia. For a heartbeat, hope flickered across her face as if she believed he was about to declare his love. Then he spoke, and shattered her world instead. I will not be completing this bonding. Gasps erupted. Shock rippled through the crowd. Cassia went rigid, all color draining from her face. What? The word slipped out before she could stop it. He never looked away from her. You spent 6 years lying to this kingdom. More gasps. The crowd churned with questions. The poisoning. She staggered visibly. The memory suppression. The crowd froze. The destruction of records. His voice climbed. The intimidation of servants. The cover-up. The attempted murder of Ren. The courtyard erupted into chaos. No. Cassia's scream cut through the noise. Ashen, listen to me, you had 6 years. The words struck like a blade. She fell silent. He stepped closer, the entire courtyard, the entire kingdom watching, listening. You stole 6 years from my mate. The world seemed to stop. Mate, the word rippled through the crowd. Confusion, shock, disbelief. He wasn't finished. You stole 6 years from my son. Another wave of chaos surged through the gathering. Shouts, questions, confusion. He didn't care. The truth was finally free. Cassia's eyes filled with tears. Genuine or not, it no longer mattered. Ashen, I love you. The words hung in the air, pathetic, desperate, hollow. He felt nothing, not even pity, because every time she claimed love, he remembered Ren waiting by that road. Every time she cried, he remembered Dean hiding inside that storage chest. Every time she begged, he remembered the blood-soaking Ren's cottage floor. Love? No, this had never been love. He raised his voice, alpha command carrying across the entire kingdom. Cassia Ashwood. She flinched physically. I reject you. The words struck like thunder. The bond that had never truly formed shattered instantly. She collapsed to her knees, a broken cry tearing from her throat. The humiliation was absolute, public, permanent. There would be no recovering from this. Not after today. He looked down at her, expressionless. You are stripped of every title. Another gasp swept the crowd. You will leave my territory before sunset. Her head snapped up, horror flooding her face. You will never return. His voice never rose, which somehow made it worse. The finality unmistakable. Everything she'd worked for, gone in seconds. Then he turned toward the royal platform, toward his mother. The queen mother stood frozen. For the first time in years she looked old. A stab of pain went through him. Despite everything, she was still his mother, which made the betrayal hurt worse, not easier. The crowd held its breath, wondering if she too would be cast out. He wanted to. Goddess help him. He wanted to. But he couldn't. Not entirely. His gaze hardened. You will leave the pack house. She flinched visibly. You will hold no further authority over castle affairs. Silence. You will never again advise this throne. Tears filled her eyes. He didn't look away. For 6 years she had looked away from Ren's suffering. The cottage looked exactly as it had before, small, simple, quiet. Ashen stood at the edge of the dirt road, unable to move. This was where it had all happened. Where he'd found her. Where he'd fallen in love with her. Where he'd promised to return. And where she had spent 6 years waiting. The weight of it nearly crushed him. His wolf sat silent, ashamed. He understood the feeling completely, because he felt exactly the same. Word of the shattered ceremony had spread through the kingdom within hours, yet Ren hadn't stayed to watch. She hadn't celebrated, hadn't gloated, hadn't cared. The moment she'd heard it was over, she'd gathered Dean and returned home, as if none of it mattered anymore. Maybe, after 6 years, it didn't. He finally approached the door, every step heavier than the last. A small voice reached him first. Laughter. Dean. The sound stopped him cold. For several seconds he simply stood, listening, trying not to dwell on all the years he'd missed. Then he knocked. Silence. A moment later, the door opened. Ren froze. He froze too. The sight of her hurt more now than it ever had. Because now he remembered everything. Every smile. Every promise. Every kiss. Every dream they'd built together. All of it destroyed by 6 stolen years. Her eyes hardened instantly. She tried to shut the door. He stopped it. Not with force, with desperation. Please. The words slipped out, raw and real. She stared at him. He'd never begged before. Not as a king. Not as an alpha. Not as any version of himself she knew. Yet here he was. I remembered. The words shattered whatever composure remained in her expression. Pain, hope, fear, all colliding at once. Still she said nothing. He swallowed and told her everything. The poison, the memory suppression, his mother, Cassia, the lies, the manipulation, the stolen years, all of it, nothing hidden, nothing softened. When he finished, silence filled the small home. Ren sat motionless, hands trembling faintly. He couldn't read her thoughts, and that terrified him. He'd rather face 100 enemies than her silence. I waited, she finally whispered, barely audible. He closed his eyes. The words hurt worse than any punishment could. I know. I waited every single day. He nodded, unable to speak. I thought maybe you were delayed. Another nod. Then I thought maybe you'd forgotten. His chest tightened. Then I thought maybe you simply didn't love me enough to come back. The confession broke him, because for 6 years that had been her entire truth. Tears filled her eyes. Not loud, not dramatic. The quiet kind, the dangerous kind, born from being hurt too long. He moved closer, slow, careful, like approaching a wounded wolf. Ren. His voice cracked, surprising them both. I am so sorry. The apology felt useless, far too small. But it was all he had to offer for now. A small voice interrupted. Mommy? Dean stood in the doorway, watching, listening, understanding far more than any child should. Ashen stepped back at once, giving him room. The boy looked between them, then slowly approached. His gaze fixed on Ashen, curious, thoughtful, cautious. Over the following weeks, Ashen returned again and again. Not as alpha, not as king, just as Ashen, the man who had missed everything. He learned about Dean's first steps, taken on a rainy afternoon right there in the cottage, a moment he hadn't witnessed. He learned Dean's first word hadn't been mommy, hadn't been wolf, hadn't been moon. It had been bird. He laughed, then felt tears burn behind his eyes, because he hadn't been there for that either. He learned about the birthday's small celebrations, homemade cakes, handmade gifts. Dean proudly showed him every drawing he'd ever kept, every memory, every small moment. Ashen absorbed each one greedily, desperate to make up for years he could never reclaim. One evening they sat together outside, the sun sinking behind the trees. Dean perched beside him on the wooden steps, legs swinging. Ashen had spent the day helping mend part of the fence. For the first time, the boy seemed at ease around him. That small comfort meant more than words could hold. Then Dean spoke quietly. If you loved mommy, Ashen smiled, and it vanished instantly. Why didn't you come back? Silence. The question wasn't cruel, wasn't angry. It was honest, simple, a child trying to understand. Ashen stared at the fading light, searching for an answer and finding none. What explanation could ever be enough? Someone stole his memories. Someone lied. Someone manipulated him. None of it changed the reality. He hadn't been there. He swallowed hard, throat burning. I wanted to. The words sounded weak, pathetic. Dean waited. Ashen looked down at his own hands. The hands that should have taught his son to track. The hands that should have held him through nightmares. The hands that had arrived 6 years too late. I wanted to every day, his voice cracked. And for the first time since becoming alpha, Ashen Vale wept. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like a man mourning something he could never get back. Dean stared, then slowly scooted closer until their shoulders touched. The small gesture nearly undid Ashen completely because it felt like forgiveness. Not all of it. Not yet. But enough. Enough to give him hope. And after 6 stolen years, hope felt like a miracle.